James Miller stared through the observation window at the floating, translucent creature in the tank before him. Even after 3 weeks at Harmony Station, the sight of alien life forms still amazed him. This particular being, a scientist named Trill from the distant Waterworld Aquarium, resembled nothing so much as a glowing jellyfish with multiple tendrils that pulsed with soft blue light. "Dr. Miller, your presence is requested in Lab 7, announced the station's AI through his wrist communicator. James sighed. As the only human xenobiologist on the station, his expertise was in constant demand. He took one last look at Trill, whose body now flickered with patterns of yellow and green light, their species' form of communication, before heading down the curved hallway. When James entered Lab 7, he was surprised to find the tank in the center of the room empty. Instead, Trill floated in a personal mobility unit, a water-filled sphere that hovered at human eye level, allowing aquatic species to walk through air-breathing environments. "Hello, human James," came Trill's voice through the translator device. Their actual communication was the beautiful light patterns rippling across their body, but the station's technology converted these signals into spoken words. "I requested your assistance." "Nice to officially meet you, Trill," James said with a smile. "What can I help you with?" "Our research teams will be working together on the microbial adaptation project," Trill explained, their body pulsing faster with what James guessed was excitement. "I wish to establish direct communication protocols rather than relying on intermediaries." Over the next few hours, James learned that Trill's species, the luminary, had evolved in the deep oceans of their world. Their bodies were semi-transparent, composed of a complex network of neural pathways that conducted both thought and light. With no solid skeletal structure, they moved by gentle propulsion through water, their dozen tendrils serving as both sensory organs and tools for manipulation. "Your physical form is most interesting," Trill commented as they worked side by side. "So rigid and yet mobile. And your communication method, vibrating air molecules with a specialized opening, is remarkably efficient for a land-based species." James laughed. "I've never thought of talking quite that way, but you're not wrong." As the Earth Day concluded, James found himself enjoying Trill's company. Despite their fundamentally different biology, the alien scientist shared his curiosity and methodical approach to research. Trill asked straightforward questions about human physiology that would have seemed invasive coming from another human, but James recognized it as simple scientific inquiry. "Your species wears artificial outer membranes," Trill observed, referring to James's uniform. "Is this for protection or temperature regulation?" "Both, actually," James replied. "Plus cultural reasons. Humans like privacy and have concepts of modesty." Trill's body flashed in patterns that the translator couldn't quite catch. "Privacy. This concept does not translate well. Among luminary, all is visible. Our thoughts show as light patterns. Our internal organs can be seen through our bodies. What purpose does hiding serve?" James struggled to explain concepts that humans took for granted. "It's complicated. Some things we consider personal, especially our bodies." "Fascinating." Trill's lights pulsed slowly, which James was beginning to recognize as their thoughtful mode. "I hope to learn more about these human concepts. Perhaps we could continue our cultural exchange during the next work cycle." For the first time since arriving at the station, James felt he might have found a friend, albeit an alien one with tentacles and no concept of personal space. "I'd like that, Trill. See you tomorrow." As James left the lab, he had no idea how much this new friendship would change not just his life, but potentially the future of human-alien relations. The recreation area on Harmony Station featured viewports that stretched from floor to ceiling, offering spectacular views of the nearby nebula. James sat at a small table, carefully arranging items he'd brought from Earth. Across from him, Trill's mobility sphere hovered, the alien's tendrils gently swaying in the water as bursts of curious purple light flickered across their transparent body. "These are what we call comfort foods," James explained, pointing to the assortment of packaged snacks. Foods that remind us of home or childhood. Trill's translator activated as their body pulsed with light. My species absorbs nutrients through our outer membrane. The concept of eating remains strange to me. James unwrapped a chocolate bar. That's why this cultural exchange is important. We can learn about our differences. He broke off a piece and placed it in his mouth, aware of Trill watching intently. Your facial muscles contract in what you call a smile. This indicates pleasure, Trill asked. Exactly. Chocolate releases chemicals in our brains that make us feel good. James paused. How do Luminary experience pleasure? Trill's body suddenly erupted in a cascade of bright, rapid pulses. Like this. When we learn something new or connect with others, our neural pathways generate excess energy that manifests as light. You're literally lighting up with happiness, James said, grinning. That's beautiful. Over the next hour, their conversation wandered through various aspects of human culture. Trill was particularly confused by clothing. You have explained modesty, but I still do not understand why humans hide their biological structures, Trill said, tendrils curling in what James now recognized as confusion. All species have bodies. What purpose does concealment serve? James thought for a moment. It's partly social. Seeing certain parts of each other can cause strong emotional or physical reactions in humans. Covering up helps us focus on other things. Like science. Exactly like science. James laughed. Trill's lights dimmed briefly. Among my people, all is visible. Our emotions show as colors. Our internal organs can be seen through our bodies. We have no secrets from each other. That sounds both wonderful and terrifying to a human, James admitted. We value our privacy highly. Privacy, repeated Trill, the translator struggling with the concept. The right to keep parts of oneself hidden from others. Their lights pulsed slowly. We have no word for this. The closest concept might be solitary thought time. Periods when we drift in deep water to process information alone. As their meeting continued, station crew members of various species passed by, some nodding to James or acknowledging Trill with their own cultural greetings. The station housed representatives from 12 different worlds, yet human luminary interactions were still relatively rare. I've brought something else, James said, pulling out a small device. It's called a music player. Sound is important in human culture. He pressed play, and soft piano music filled their corner of the recreation area. Trill remained perfectly still, their lights dimming completely. Are you okay? James asked, concerned. Slowly, Trill's body began to pulse in rhythm with the music, matching the tempo and changing colors with the shifting melodies. The display was so beautiful that nearby crew members stopped to watch. This is remarkable, Trill finally said. These sound patterns create visual patterns in my neural network. It is like your mind is touching mine. James felt a surprising lump in his throat. That's what music does for us too, in a way. It connects us. As the song ended, Trill's tendrils reached out to touch the edge of their mobility sphere, closest to James. I understand humans better now, Trill said softly. You hide your bodies, but share your feelings through these sound patterns. Different methods, same purpose. Connection. James nodded, realizing their friendship had just deepened significantly. Despite their profound differences, they were finding common ground, though neither could have predicted how dramatically their understanding would soon be tested. Steam filled the small bathroom as James enjoyed his shower. After 3 months on Harmony Station, he had learned to appreciate these simple pleasures. Real water showers were a luxury compared to the sonic cleaners most crew members used. The hot water eased the tension in his shoulders after a long day analyzing tissue samples with Trill. Their work had been progressing well. Just yesterday, they had made a breakthrough in understanding how certain Earth bacteria interacted with luminary cellular structures. Trill's excitement had manifested as a dazzling light show that left everyone in the lab momentarily stunned. James reached for the soap, humming contentedly. He had 15 minutes before his next meeting, plenty of time to finish his shower and get dressed. Without warning, a harsh alarm blared through his quarters. Red emergency lights pulsed through the steam. Alert! Environmental system malfunction in Section 12. All personnel initiate safety protocols, announced the station eye. Section 12, that was his section. James froze, soap still in hand. Was there a pressure leak? Toxic gas? The station protocols required him to check his emergency console immediately. Before he could react, the bathroom door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. James, the station systems indicate dangerous oxygen fluctuation in your quarters. Are you functional? Trill's translation unit spoke urgently as the luminary floated into the bathroom in their mobility sphere. James stood completely exposed, water streaming down his naked body. For one frozen moment, neither moved. Trill, James gasped, scrambling to grab a towel. What are you doing in here? Trill's body flashed with rapid pulses of yellow and orange, colors James had never seen them display before. Their tendrils extended toward James in what seemed like curiosity. The environmental alert indicated potential danger, Trill explained, their sphere hovering closer. Station protocol requires checking on all personnel. Why are you covering yourself? Are you damaged? James clutched the towel tightly around his waist, his face burning with embarrassment. I'm fine. But humans don't. We don't show our bodies to others. Remember our conversation about privacy? Trill's lights dimmed slightly. Privacy. Yes, but the emergency override. There is no emergency, James interrupted, noticing the alarm had stopped. It must have been a false alarm or a system glitch. His wrist communicator beeped. Attention all personnel. Environmental alert was triggered by scheduled system testing. We apologize for the inconvenience. Resume normal activities. The bathroom fell silent except for the shower still running behind James. Water pooled around his feet as he stood, mortified, clutching his towel while his alien friend hovered before him. I have violated your cultural norm, Trill stated, their lights pulsing slowly. I did not understand the significance. Your biological configuration is different from what I expected. James wanted to sink through the floor. Trill, please, can you just leave so I can get dressed? Of course, Trill responded, backing their mobility sphere toward the door. But James, may I ask? The external appendages I observe, they are your reproductive. We are not discussing this right now. James almost shouted, his embarrassment complete. Trill's lights flickered in what James recognized as confusion. I have caused distress. This was not my intention. The door closed behind Trill, leaving James alone again. He leaned against the wall, shutting off the shower with a groan. How was he supposed to face Trill in the lab tomorrow? His alien friend had just seen everything. Parts of human anatomy that Trill had probably only read about in xenobiology texts. Their cultural exchange had suddenly become far more educational than either had anticipated, and James had no idea how to handle the awkwardness that would surely follow. One thing was certain. Their relationship had just changed irrevocably. James avoided the main research lab for 2 full days after the incident. He rearranged his schedule, worked from his quarters, and took his meals during off hours. The thought of facing Trill made his stomach knot with embarrassment. How could he explain human anatomy and privacy in a scientific context when he could barely think about the encounter without cringing? On the 3rd day, his communicator beeped with a message from Dr. Korda, the station's research director. Miller, your absence is affecting project timelines. Whatever's happening between you and the luminary representative, resolve it. That's an order. With a heavy sigh, James made his way to the lab. When he entered, Trill was alone, their mobility sphere positioned by the main analysis terminal. Their bodies shimmered with subdued blue light, a color James had come to associate with contemplation. James. Trill's translator activated as soon as they detected his presence. I am gratified by your return. "Hi, Trill," James said awkwardly, keeping his eyes on his workstation. "Let's just forget about what happened and get back to work." "I cannot forget," Trill replied, their lights shifting to an intense purple. "I have conducted extensive research in your absence." James glanced up, surprised. "Research? About what?" "Human reproductive biology." Trill's mobility sphere glided closer. "What I observed was extraordinary. Your species carries reproductive organs externally. This is why clothing exists, to protect these vulnerable structures." James felt his face grow hot. "It's more complicated than that. Can we please change the subject?" "James," Trill continued, apparently oblivious to his discomfort, "my species reproduces through cellular division. We simply split when our biomass reaches sufficient quantity. We have no distinct reproductive organs. The concept was purely theoretical until I saw you." Despite his embarrassment, James's scientific curiosity stirred. "You don't have different sexes?" "No. Each luminary is a complete reproductive unit. We are all identical in this capacity." "That's fascinating," James admitted, slowly relaxing into their scientific discussion. "But that's why you couldn't understand our privacy concerns. Your bodies don't have the same vulnerabilities." Trill's lights pulsed rapidly. "Precisely. This explains so much about human behavior. Your mating rituals, pair bonding, social structures, all influenced by this biological reality." James couldn't help but laugh. "When you put it that way, I guess humans are pretty strange." "Not strange," Trill corrected. "Remarkable. Your species evolved a completely different approach to genetic diversity. The risk of external reproductive organs creates strong protective instincts, which extend to your social structures." Moving to a terminal, Trill projected a series of comparative anatomical diagrams. James noticed that the luminary had been researching not just human biology, but comparing it with dozens of other sentient species across the galaxy. "Look," Trill continued excitedly, their body now pulsing with bright yellow light. "Of the 47 known sentient species, only 6 carry external reproductive structures. And only humans combine this with your level of intelligence and social complexity." James stared at the data, professional interest overcoming his personal embarrassment. "I never thought about it that way. Our physical vulnerability shaped our psychology. And your art, literature, cultural taboos, all influenced by this biological foundation." Trill added, "The incident helped me understand something fundamental about humans that no textbook could convey." James finally met Trill's gaze, or rather, looked directly at the alien's central neural cluster, where their consciousness resided. "I'm still embarrassed," he admitted, "but I guess if it led to better scientific understanding." "In my culture," Trill said gently, "all knowledge is valuable. There is no shame in being observed or understood. Your discomfort taught me about human emotion, while your anatomy taught me about human evolution. Both lessons are equally important." James nodded slowly, feeling the awkwardness between them begin to dissolve. What had started as a mortifying misunderstanding was transforming into something else, a deeper appreciation of their fundamental differences and surprising similarities. "So," he said, turning to their research terminal, "shall we get back to work then?" Trill's body glowed with warm golden light, their expression of happiness. "Yes, friend James, I believe we now understand each other much better." The laboratory hummed with energy as James and Trill worked side by side. 2 weeks had passed since the embarrassing incident, and their awkwardness had transformed into a new level of scientific collaboration. Their shared understanding of their biological differences had opened unexpected doors in their research. "Pass me the molecular scanner," James said, not looking up from his microscope. Trill's mobility sphere glided closer, one tendril extending to hand him the device. "The human cell samples are displaying unusual properties when exposed to the luminary protein compound." James adjusted the scanner settings and aimed it at the sample. The holographic display above the workstation burst into a complex array of colors and patterns. "That's Not what I expected, James murmured, watching the molecular structures shift and realign. The human DNA is actually bonding with your cellular material without rejection. Trill's body pulsed with bright flashes of excitement. This contradicts all previous interspecies cellular research. Every other known species displays immune rejection when exposed to foreign biological material. Station scientists from other departments began to notice their work. Dr. Korda, the research director, frequently stopped by to check their progress, her antennae twitching with interest. Even representatives from the Galactic Science Council requested updates. Late one night, when most of the station was in sleep cycle, James made the connection. Trill, he called out, startling the luminary who had been quietly analyzing data across the lab. I think I understand why human DNA is different. It's related to our reproductive system. Trill floated quickly to James's workstation. Explain. Species that reproduce through cellular division, like yours, pass genetic material through direct replication, James said, fingers flying across the display as he pulled up comparative charts. But humans and other sexually reproducing species constantly combine and recombine genetic material through reproduction, creating greater genetic diversity. Trill added, their lights pulsing thoughtfully. Exactly, James continued, excitement building in his voice. But there's more. The external nature of human reproductive organs exposed our genetic material to environmental factors throughout our evolution in ways internal systems wouldn't be. Trill's tendrils moved rapidly, manipulating the data displays. This created unique adaptation mechanisms at the cellular level, which is why human DNA has this extraordinary ability to bond with alien cellular structures without rejection. James finished. Our cells evolved to be exceptionally adaptive and flexible. The implications hit them simultaneously. Trill's entire body lit up with brilliant white light, so intense that James had to shield his eyes. This could solve the genetic degradation crisis affecting 12 species in the outer rim. Trill said, their translator barely keeping up with their rapid light pulses. Their cellular structure is breaking down due to radiation exposure from their sun's decay. James nodded eagerly. Human genetic material could potentially stabilize their DNA and halt the degradation. We need to run more tests. But this discovery would never have happened without our understanding of human reproductive biology, Trill said. Without seeing you. James felt his face warm slightly, but he smiled. Without that embarrassing moment, we wouldn't have explored these differences so thoroughly. The incident provided direct observational data that sparked this entire research direction, Trill agreed. In scientific terms, it was invaluable. They worked through the night, testing their theory across multiple species cell samples. By morning, they had confirmation. Human DNA contained unique properties that could potentially save millions of lives across the galaxy. As dawn artificial lighting began to brighten the station, James leaned back in his chair, exhausted but exhilarated. You know what's funny? If you had knocked before entering my bathroom that day, none of this would have happened. Trill's body rippled with gentle blue pulses, their version of laughter. Perhaps the universe required your momentary discomfort for the greater scientific good. James grinned. Just don't tell everyone that the key to saving alien species was seeing a human naked. Too late, came Dr. Korda's voice from the doorway. The Galactic Council wants to meet with both of you immediately. Her expression was serious, but her eyes twinkled. It seems your little discovery is about to change everything. The Galactic Council chamber intimidated James with its vast, circular design. 12 raised platforms surrounded the central speaking area, each occupied by representatives of the founding species of the Interstellar Alliance. Hovering light panels provided information in multiple languages, and the air hummed with translation devices working to bridge the communication gaps between wildly different life forms. James straightened his formal uniform and glanced at Trill floating beside him. Even Trill seemed subdued, their usual bright colors dimmed to a steady blue glow. The Council recognizes xenobiologist James Miller of Earth and bioscientist Trill of Aquarian, announced the Council President, a tall, insectoid being with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights. You may present your findings. James stepped forward, swallowing his nervousness. Honorable Council members, what began as a cultural misunderstanding between our species has led to a discovery with far-reaching implications. He activated the holographic display, showing the molecular structures they had discovered. Human DNA contains unique properties that allow it to bond with and stabilize the cellular structures of multiple species, particularly those suffering from genetic degradation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A reptilian counselor leaned forward. You propose using human genetic material to treat the Outer Rim crisis. Yes, Trill answered, floating forward. Our tests show a 94% success rate in halting degradation. Without treatment, 12 species face extinction within 2 generations. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices and sounds. The Council President raised all 4 arms for silence. This is unprecedented, stated a counselor composed entirely of crystalline structures. Humans have been considered a minor species in galactic affairs. If this research proves viable, their biological significance would require reconsideration of their status. James hadn't anticipated this political angle. He exchanged a quick glance with Trill. We seek only to share this discovery for the benefit of all species, James clarified. A shadowy figure from the far platform spoke in a deep, vibrating tone. The human wishes to appear humble, but surely Earth will demand compensation. Access to human genetic material would become the most valuable resource in the galaxy. That was not our intention. James began, but was interrupted by another counselor. We must establish immediate protocols for harvesting this genetic material. How many humans would be required to provide samples? James felt a surge of alarm. Hold on. Humans have strict ethical guidelines about the use of our genetic material. This would require careful consideration and consent. Consent, scoffed the reptilian counselor, when millions of lives are at stake. Trill suddenly flashed with intense red light, a color James had never seen them display before. The chamber fell silent, all eyes drawn to the luminary's dramatic display. Council members, Trill's translator projected clearly, I must remind you that humans are sentient beings with cultural practices that must be respected. Their unique biology cannot become an excuse to violate their sovereignty. James felt a surge of gratitude toward his friend. Furthermore, Trill continued, this discovery emerged precisely because our research respected human cultural differences rather than overlooking them. I witnessed human biological structures by accident, but we gained understanding through respect and scientific cooperation. The Council President's antennae quivered thoughtfully. The luminary makes a valid point. If we wish to benefit from this discovery, we must approach humans as equals, not merely as biological resources. A new voice spoke from the entrance of the chamber, and humanity is prepared for that conversation. All heads turned to see Admiral Chen, Earth's ambassador, striding into the room. She nodded to James with a small smile. Earth received your preliminary report, Dr. Miller. I've been authorized to discuss cooperative research agreements, provided human rights and dignity remain paramount. James released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The political implications of their discovery were expanding beyond anything he had imagined. What had begun with an embarrassing bathroom encounter was now reshaping humanity's place in the galactic community. Admiral Chen joined them at the center of the chamber, and as the diplomatic discussions began in earnest, James noticed Trill's tendrils briefly touch his shoulder. A gesture of solidarity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, at least they would face them together. The observation deck of Harmony Station offered the best view of the stars. James stood by the massive viewport, watching distant ships arrive and depart. Far more traffic than the station had seen before their discovery 6 months ago. Behind him, the newly established Interspecies Genetic Research Center buzzed with activity. I calculated I would find you here, came Trill's familiar voice as their mobility sphere glided to James's side. "The final delegations have arrived for tomorrow's ceremony." James smiled at his friend. "Hard to believe it's really happening. The James Miller-Trill Genetic Compatibility Protocol. Quite a mouthful." "Humans do enjoy naming discoveries after their creators," Trill observed, their body pulsing with gentle amusement. "My people would simply call it the helpful bonding method." They stood in comfortable silence, watching a medical transport ship dock. Inside were patients from the Outer Rim worlds, the first large-scale test subjects for their treatment. Early trials had been even more successful than predicted, with genetic degradation not just halting but reversing in some cases. "Did you ever imagine," James asked quietly, "that seeing me naked would lead to all this?" Trill's lights rippled in what James now recognized as their version of laughter. "I did not, though I maintain that the embarrassment you experienced was unnecessary." "Easy for you to say," James chuckled. "Your species doesn't even wear clothes." "And yet," Trill countered, "it was precisely our differences that made the discovery possible. If Luminary had the same physical structure as humans, I would never have questioned what I saw. If humans reproduced as we do, your DNA would not have developed its unique properties." James nodded thoughtfully. "Different evolutionary paths leading to complementary knowledge." A soft chime from the station's communication system interrupted them. "Dr. Miller and Scientist Trill, your presence is requested in Conference Room 1. The Galactic Council President has arrived." They made their way through the station's corridors, now bustling with scientists, diplomats, and medical personnel from dozens of worlds. James noticed how crew members nodded respectfully as they passed, quite a change from his early days as the station's only human scientist. The conference room was filled with representatives from 20 different species. At the center stood Admiral Chen from Earth and the Insectoid Council President. "Ah, the heroes of the hour," the Admiral said warmly. "We were just finalizing the protocols for tomorrow's ceremony." The Council President's compound eyes reflected light as they turned toward James and Trill. "Thanks to your discovery, we have established the first truly equal partnership between all our worlds. No longer will species be classified by technological advancement alone. Biological uniqueness now holds equal value." "This was unexpected," James admitted. "When we started, we were just trying to understand each other better. And therein lies the most important lesson." The Council President clicked thoughtfully. "Understanding differences leads to greater innovation than seeking similarities." After the meeting concluded, James and Trill found themselves alone in the corridor. "I received new orders today," James said. "Earth wants me to lead a specialized team studying how human genetic material can benefit other species. They're calling it humanity's gift." "My people have requested something similar," Trill replied, lights pulsing softly. "But most importantly, they have requested that we continue working together." James smiled. "Partners?" "I prefer the term friends," Trill answered, "though I promise to announce my presence before entering your living quarters in the future." James laughed, remembering his mortification that now seemed so distant and unimportant. "You know, on Earth we have a saying, 'Everything happens for a reason.'" "An interesting concept," Trill mused. "Do you believe that is true of our accidental encounter?" James looked out at the stars and the ships carrying hope to dying worlds, then back at his alien friend whose different perspective had changed everything. "In our case, absolutely," he said with certainty. "Sometimes the most embarrassing moments lead to the most amazing discoveries, especially between friends from different worlds." Trill's body glowed with warm golden light as they moved forward together, two vastly different beings who had found understanding where none had existed before, their accidental encounter now permanently written into the history of the galaxy.